ton of people take in the U.S. credit cards for Discover. Tonight, Flyers, Blue Jacks, Discover card key matchup. Go to discover.com/yes. Limitations do apply. Lance Zierlein is a draft analyst for NFL.com. NFL Network, been covering this stuff for 20 years. His dad was an offensive lineman in this league. And I really rely on him. He's got his mock draft out on NFL.com. Of the 500 or so draftable players, he just told me he's got about 400 of the reports done. He is sensational. He has been as accurate as anybody who does these mock drafts. And he just gave me some good tidbits off the air that I can't use. I literally will not be able to sleep tonight. Via the Coward Global Satellite Network, my friend Lance Zierlein. Okay, this is Disneyland for me. Joy rolls her eyes at me. She knows I go home all night and watch mock drafts. All right, let's start with this. I just want to start with Burrow. Lance, I like him, but I don't see a lot of special. I thought it was a special coaching staff year offensive line for LSU. Can you find a flaw with him? Because everybody else loves him.
Yeah, I mean, every player has flaws. Every player has flaws, right? And I think the one thing with Burrow that you want to take a look at is his throws that he had troubles with in 2018. That's why you got to look at that 18 tape. I know it's really not good, but when you look at 19, I found an issue, and I was looking at the quadrants of the field to see where is this super accurate quarterback? Where does he have any flaws? And what I found was when you look at intermediate throws outside the numbers, right, Colin, pro throws, when you look at those pro throws, he was 21 of 43 with 5 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. And when you go back and look at those same throws in 2018, it was the same issue. And what happens is he's a quarterback that throws with tremendous anticipation and accuracy, much better this year than last year, but it's the same issue. He has a below-average arm by NFL standards.
Yes.
Now, LSU fans and Cincinnati Bengals fans get really upset when you say that. But, I mean, you just have to be honest and accurate with your assessment so that you can get this right. And Joe Burrow does not make that throw exceptionally well. He's got to throw with great timing, and he's got to throw with great accuracy because he doesn't beat tight windows consistently. 21 of 43 would tell you that on those throws. And so what you saw with LSU is they had their new offensive coordinator or the passing game coordinator come in, and Joe Brady said, well, let's not throw those throws.
That's right.
Let's not do what you did last year.
That's right.
And you got to manage him, and you got to manage Joe Burrow. He's a terrific talent, my #1 rated quarterback, Colin, but you got to manage him a little bit.
Is there a gap between him and Justin Herbert? Now, Herbert did not have LSU's talent. He had a good O-line at Oregon. They did not have NFL wide receivers. He's a little bigger. I think he's got a stronger arm. I think he is mobile, though he didn't show it. Great at the Senior Bowl. Carried him in the Rose Bowl. I thought he carried far less talent to a Rose Bowl win. Where does he rank for you?
Well, so in that Rose Bowl win, 3 great rushing touchdowns, right? He did not hit 200 yards passing for the 3rd game in a row. Oregon State rivalry game against Utah. That was a big conference championship game. And then, of course, the game against Wisconsin in the Rose Bowl. 3 straight games where he didn't hit 200 yards. And yet when you turn on the tape, there's some stuff to really like about him. He's a full field reader. He can get through all 4 progressions. He's got a big arm.
Yes.
I think he can throw with some anticipation. And he's a little underrated in terms of his ability to get outside the pocket. Now, I'm with you. I like a lot of what I see from Justin Herbert. Here's my concerns, Colin. #1, not consistent in terms of the performance. The performances weren't consistent. The game against Auburn was not a great game, for example, that we're seeing right there. The second problem is, and I had this brought to my attention by an NFL executive who said, Lance, go ahead and watch as much tape as you want and count how many times you see him make off-schedule plays.
He doesn't.
Like Burrow and Tua. Exactly.
He doesn't.
And that's the NFL, right? I mean, it's part of it.
Yeah, no, that's the knock on him that I think is incredibly fair, is if it's he's got to make something up. Now, some of that is I don't think he played with great receivers, but that's a very fair criticism. Off schedule, off script, he can be very, very average. It's fair.
Right.
Okay.
Right. But isn't it also fair that he's going to have much better talent throwing to, in terms of wide receiver versus corner?
I absolutely think so. Now, listen, I think we both like Tua, and we both have the same. We know he's accurate, and we know we have an injury issue here that we're worried about a little bit. My theory has always been, and this sounds ridiculous, and GMs would laugh at this, but if I can get 13 starts out of him a year, I think he's good enough to win 9. Give me a good backup to win 1, and I feel like I can win my division. He's my favorite. the injury stuff doesn't freak me out. Does it freak you out?
Well, so three things to concern yourself with inside of 12 months. And that's, 2 high ankle sprains that turned into procedures, and then a very serious injury that apparently, he's been cleared on. We'll really get the full look at the combine. It's a little bit of a concern for me, Colin, because what he does, what's really good is that after 2, I'd like to see him go to the 3rd read a little more often. I'd like to see him as a little more patient. But once he sees something open up, he's going to go exploit it. He'll take off. If you're going to be a dual threat quarterback, I need you to be a little bit more durable than what we've seen with Tua. So I think it's a real concern. But you know what? How about we also spotlight and focus his 2.5 strong seasons in high leverage games for Alabama? Because Joe Burrow's got 1.
Yes, that's what I said. They put him in as a freshman against Georgia in the second half. He was dynamite. So this kid went from the best high school quarterback to winning the national title in Alabama. Right. He got no break, no transfer, no wait, no rest. I totally agree. Okay, so when you look at this stuff and you look at all these players, and they're talking about, it's the deepest, it's the deepest draft wide receiver ever. Is it hyperbole, or is that position to you? When they say that, are there 30, 40, 45 wide receivers that you could draft? What are we looking at here?
Oh, I think the number's going to be I think the number's going to be in the high 30s. And I'm talking about, I tier them off. I don't think there's not going to be a Calvin Johnson. I'm not even sure there's going to be an Odell Beckham Jr. in his prime when he's not being a problem type of guy. But when you look at this draft, boy, CeeDee Lamb and Ruggs with his speed, and Jerry Jeudy with his route running, and then you get into the big guys like Chase Claypool and Michael Pittman there at USC, and then we look at Denzel Mims, who had a really good Senior Bowl and should run right there at a 4.39, a big guy that runs that speed, and then Jalen Reagor, who did not have good quarterback play but is as explosive as anyone, and you're going to see it at the combine. You start to add it up, Colin, and you've got a bunch of different flavors of ice cream. And I think, my friend Bucky Brooks always says it takes a basketball team at the wide receiving core. You've got a bunch of different types of guys. I've never seen, personally, this much depth at the different position types of wide receivers as we've seen now. Speed guys, big guys, possession guys, slot guys. They're loaded at every single one of those types of wide receiver.
Okay, so I have your mock draft. I'm going to, for my radio audience, TV audience will see it. This is, to me, the most, I just saw Mel Kiper's today. I love Mel, but he had Tua going to the Lions. I don't think it's a bad move, but I don't think it's going to happen. So your mock draft, I honestly, this makes sense to me. Joe Burrow, Chase Young, Lions get a corner, Giants, who need defensive help and have a couple of nice defensive linemen with Dexter Lawrence and Leonard Williams, go and get Isaiah Simmons from the do-all linebacker for Clemson. Tua goes to Miami. Chargers take Justin Herbert. And then it's offense and defensive linemen. Let me just throw a kid out to you. I had a scout tell me, keep your eye on Jordan Love. Bad mechanics that can be corrected. Didn't have great coaching in college. He said, just don't be shocked if Jordan Love goes way late first round. What do you make of him?
Well, I think Jordan Love could go earlier than way late. I mean, Jordan Love, to me, I had him number 2 behind Tua this summer when I watched. And that's definitely ahead of Burrow and definitely ahead of the other guys. I thought Jordan Love looked terrific. He lost his head coach, his offensive coordinator, both starting wide receivers, his starting tight end, a starting running back, and 4 of his starting offensive linemen. This year, he had 20 touchdowns and 17 interceptions. It was a disappointing season. The tape was disappointing. The accuracy was disappointing. The decision-making was disappointing. But I can't forget last year's tape. I know that guy lives in there somewhere. So what you want to do is find out where he is in his headspace and find out whether or not where you can get him to that level. And let's remember, he had a lot of things working against him this year. I just went through a long laundry list of them. Jordan Love has first-round talent.
Yes.
My grade on him is more like a high 6.2, which means eventual starter, but it comes with some caveats. And I think he's maybe even more of a 6.5 boom or bust player. I really think, and we talk about these numbers, and you can. I've got a new grading scale that is the same as Daniel Jeremiah's. We're using a pro-style grading scale. A 6.5, Colin, is a boom or bust player. And I think that's what Jordan Love is. He's either going to be a bust and won't work out, or he's going to be an impressive talent that people say, man, I wish we would have taken a chance on him.
Okay, I got to ask you, and I know these are uncomfortable. Who's overrated? Who's on everybody's top 10? And you, because I got mine, and I don't want to say it publicly. Who is your a little overrated guy that you think is overvalued on all these mock drafts and talk shows?
Well, okay, so one guy that we talked a little bit about, Austin Jackson, I'm hearing his name a lot.
USC left tackle.
Yeah, and I've heard him mentioned as a guy that could sneak into the first round.
He got worked in the bowl game. He got worked in the bowl game.
Epinesa really took it to him, and I think he is a very raw player who's got a lot of footwork issues that he's got to get corrected. And I think, he's a guy that might be a little bit overrated right now. I'll tell you another one, and this is not popular, and I've got a pretty good grade on him, but CeeDee Lamb makes me a little bit nervous. And I say that because he's not a great route runner. He's going to run into 4.5s, chances are. A lot of scouts expect him to be right around a 4.52. He's kind of an inside-outside player, good with the ball in his hands. He's a fluid playmaker. But I don't know that I love a player like that in the 8 to 12 range. Those guys I typically, are more like Nelson Aguilar was coming out of school, where you thought, well, he could do a lot of those same things. Lamb's a better player, and I've got a good grade on Lamb. But he makes me a little more nervous than, say, a Jerry Jeudy, where I feel more comfortable with the Jerry Jeudy than I do with a CeeDee Lamb. I think CeeDee Lamb, who's number one on a lot of teams' board at wide receiver, I think he may be a tad overrated. And that's not to call him a good player, that it say he's not a good player. I think he's a tad overrated. And then, in terms of another one, because I think a lot of these guys are starting to slide into where they belong. Boy, I'll give you one that's actually goes in the other direction. I think if Etienne from Clemson, if he would have come out, I think he would have eventually been the first running back off the board.
Wow.
And I was really surprised. I think J.K. Dobbins is overrated. There's one for you.
Ohio State.
I've got J.K. as, I think he's a third-round running back. And I thought I was really excited to watch him. But what I saw was a good back, but not one that has the same amount of burst that I was expecting, the same explosiveness. I think he's a good back. I question if he's going to really create for himself the same way he did against these, against these six-man boxes that he saw a lot of times in college. So I think J.K. maybe just a little bit. I might take him a little later into the second round.
All right. Good stuff.
Because it's a deep running back draft, too.
All right. Lance Zierlein. Good stuff. Listen, I could do this all day. I would invite Lance over to my house.
You could.
I could. Honestly, I just make a chili, and we sit there for 7 hours, and I'd ask you about guards from Wisconsin.
Yes. I love it.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you, Lance. Good stuff as always. Thanks, man.
Thanks, Colin.
By the way, computer systems in cars, the new normals. It's expensive. GetCarShield.com, code HERD, HERD. Save money if your car breaks down. Joy Taylor with the news.
No.